Hi there. Let's go through the book of Ezra. So this is a fascinating little book. I've been reading it on and off a little bit for the last several months, and there's just a lot of fascinating layers in it about kind of some of this political interchange back and forth going on between the various parties, and as well there's this really fascinating, almost like a reformational kind of thing going on with Ezra as the person who brings back the Word of God. Kind of reminds me as well of the story with Josiah during the reign of Josiah when they kind of find the Bible and then it's like, oh, here's this sacred text from God, that we all forgot about. So a lot of kind of pretty cool elements, and as well just kind of the historical snapshot is kind of like this twin brother to the book of Nehemiah, how they're similar but they're very different books. So it's kind of an interesting, fascinating book to look through. And so let's read through it. I don't know how many chapters I'll be getting through per sitting here. Probably I'll try to do half the book, and that way, once it's done, you've got a piece that maybe, depending, I don't know how long it'll take to read it in terms of minutes, but maybe it'll end up being something that, in 40 minutes you could sit down and binge the book, and it'll be a good experience for me as well, reading through it out loud and getting some of that added comprehension that you get from doing that. So this is going to be fun. Book of Ezra, chapter 1, I'm going to be reading from the Lexham English Bible. Wonderful little literal style, formal equivalent translation, kind of similar to the ESV, I think, in a lot of ways in terms of what I'm looking for in a translation. It's better than the ESV. Kind of reminds me in some ways of the CSB, which is the one that I read the most. It's more of a more formal equivalent than the CSB, certainly, but it seems to be more less stuck in a mold than the ESV is. The ESV is kind of like trying to be the King James, and every time I look at the ESV while I'm working with languages, not that I'm really good with the languages, but every time I look at the ESV, it's kind of like it's kind of inconsistent, and some of their renderings are just like, nah. But the LEB, kind of like the CSB, is like, this is a fresh translation that people put together. They don't have any kind of thing they're trying to do along the way, and it's just a really good translation. From what little I haven't worked with it a lot. I'm working with it now because it doesn't have the copyright restrictions, so I'm not concerned about breaking any rules by reading it out loud and putting it online. But it's a great translation. Which every time I do the parallel thing where you put all your translate and you look at a verse in all of them, it's always the case where like the LEB and the CSB are the ones that to me it's like, okay, this is just the way somebody would translate this, and it's just kind of an obvious thing when you look at the other materials. But so that's why I'm probably going to settle down and use this for the most part for doing these readings. And then for when I want to do something multiple times for variation, then I'll do some of the other public domain translations, which generally are hokey to some degree, just because they're old. Like the ASV is a great translation, but it's got all the these and thous, which kind of works for me because this channel I'm reading a lot of old stuff, and I kind of like the these and the thous. Of course, you get the King James, which has its issues, just because there's so many words that have lost their meaning. I was thinking I'll use the Webster Bible instead, but the Webster Bible still has a lot of those are still left in there because in 1833 the language was still not developed to where it is now. So you get a word like I just read in Ephesians, and it said filthy actions which are not convenient, and I'm like, they're not convenient. Interesting. Well, maybe we can find some convenient filthiness. How's that? But obviously filthy means it's not appropriate, which is a very different concept. But anyway, and then I tried out the Weymouth translation, which I don't know all of its history. I don't even know, the guy who made it, is he kind of possibly a little on the left side of the spectrum of theologically? I don't know. I don't think, clearly he's not nuts. I just don't know. But it's fun to read it because it was one of those big translations back in the day, before there was anything to really supplant and replace the King James. That was back in the time period when basically everybody would read, anybody scholarly like a pastor would read the King James and the RV, or the ASV, depending where you live. So Weymouth was one of the many translations that went in to fill that void, not to replace either one, but to just say, okay, well, let's have something that we can read because those two clearly have their issues. Anyway, let me just read this thing and quit talking. Ezra, chapter 1. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to accomplish the word of Yahweh by the mouth of Jeremiah, Yahweh stirred the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, and he sent a message to all of his kingdom, and also put the message in writing. Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, Yahweh, the God of the heavens, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he himself has appointed me to build a house for him in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever among you who is from all of his people, may his God be with him, and may he go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and may he build a house of Yahweh, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem. And let every survivor from wherever he resides be assisted by the men of that place with silver and gold, with possessions and domestic animals, and with the freewill offering for the house of God, which is in Jerusalem. So the heads of the families of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites, to all whose spirit God had stirred, prepared to go up and build the house of Yahweh, which is in Jerusalem. And all of their neighbors helped them with objects of silver, gold, possessions, domestic animals, and with valuable gifts, besides all of the free will offering. And Cyrus the king brought out the objects of the house of Yahweh that Nebuchadnezzar had brought from Jerusalem, and placed in the house of his gods. Cyrus the king of Persia let them go out by the hand of Mithredath the treasurer, and he counted them out to Sheshbazzar, the prince of Judah. Now these were the inventories: 30 gold metal dishes, 1,000 silver metal dishes, 29 vessels, 30 bowls of gold, 410 matching silver metal bowls, and 1,000 other objects. All of the objects of gold and silver metal were 5,400. All this Sheshbazzar brought up along with the exiles from Babylonia to Jerusalem. Now these were the people of the province who came up from the captivity of the exile, whom Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon carried captive to Babylonia. They returned to Jerusalem and Judah, each to his own city. They came with Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah, Sariah, Realiah, Mordecai, Bilshan, Mispar. Dude, you read this, you're going to be reading a lot of names. Oh, I don't mind. I don't know what I'll do with the long list, though. Mispar, Bigvai, Rehum, and Baanah. Oh, we got this list. What am I going to do with this list here? The number of the men of the people of Israel. The descendants of Perosh, 2,172. The descendants of Shephatiah, 372. The descendants of Ara, 775. The descendants of Pahath Moab, particularly, dude, okay, maybe I should just, the descendants of Bani. The descendants of Bebai. The descendants of Azgad. Okay, yeah. Really nice and historical. Clearly this is not mythology, but other than that, not sure how much I'll get from reading all these. The descendants of Uzzah, the descendants of Peseah, the descendants of Besai, Asna, Meonim, Nephisim, Bakbuk, Hakufa. Okay, okay, let's just jump to the end. Conclusion, this sounds like a historical document. That's all I needed to know. The descendants of Darkon, the descendants of Gidel, the descendants of Shephatiah, the descendants of Hatil, the descendants of Pokeret Hazabayim, and the descendants of Ami. All the temple servants and the descendants of Solomon's servants were 392. Now these were the ones who came up from Tel Melah, Tel Harsha, Cherub, Adan, and Immer. But they were not able to prove their father's household and their descent if they were from Israel. The descendants of Deliah, the descendants of Tobiah, the descendants of Nekoda, 652, etc. These sought their record in the genealogy records, but they were not found and were excluded from the priesthood as unclean. The governor said to them that they could not eat from the holy food of the sanctuary until there was present a priest for the Urim and Thummim. The whole assembly together was 42,360, apart from their male and female servants, of whom were 7,337, and they had 200 male and female singers. Their horses numbered 736, their mules numbered 245, their camels numbered 435, their donkeys numbered 6,720. When some of the heads of the families came to the house of Yahweh that is in Jerusalem, they gave freewill offerings for the house of God to erect it on its place. According to their ability, they gave to the treasury room for the work 61,000 derricks of gold, 5,000 minas of silver, and 100 priestly tunics. The priests, the Levites, and some of the people living in Jerusalem, and the singers, the gatekeepers, and the temple servants lived in their cities, and all Israel in their cities. Chapter 3. Now the 7th month drew near, and the Israelites were in the cities, so the people gathered as one in Jerusalem. And Jeshua, son of Jehozadak, and his brothers, the priests, stood up, and Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and his brothers, built the altar of the God of Israel, in order to offer burnt offerings on it, as it is written in the law of Moses, the man of God. They set up the altar on its foundations, because they were in terror, because of the peoples of the lands. And they offered burnt offerings on it for Yahweh, burnt offerings for the morning and the evening. And they kept the Feast of Booths, as it is written, and offered burnt offerings day by day in number, according to the ordinances as described for each day. After this they presented the daily sacrifice of burnt offerings, the offerings for the new moon festival, and for all of the appointed times consecrated for Yahweh, and for all who gave a freewill offering to Yahweh. From the first day of the 7th month they began to offer burnt offerings to Yahweh. But the temple of Yahweh was not yet founded. So they gave money to the stone craftsmen and skilled craftsmen, and food, drink, and olive oil to the Sidonians and Tyrians, to bring cedar trees from Lebanon to the Sea of Joppa, according to the authorization over them of Cyrus king of Persia. In the 2nd year after their coming to the house of God at Jerusalem, in the 2nd month, Zerubbabel son of Shealtiel and Jeshua son of Jehozadak began their work, and the remainder of their brothers, the priests and the Levites, and all who came from the captivity in Jerusalem. They appointed the Levites from 20 years and older to direct the work of the house of Yahweh. And Jeshua, with his sons and brothers, and Kadmiel and his sons, the sons of Judah, together directed the workers in the house of God, along with the sons of Henadad, and their sons and brothers, the Levites. And the builders laid the foundation of the temple of Yahweh, and the priests in their apparel with the trumpets, and the Levites and the sons of Asaph with the cymbals were positioned to praise Yahweh, as described by King David of Israel. And they sang responsively with praising and thanksgiving to Yahweh, saying, "For he is good, for his loyal love is everlasting for Israel." And all the people responded with a great shout of joyful acclaim in praise to Yahweh, because the house of Yahweh was laid. And many of the elderly priests, Levites, and heads of the families who had seen the first temple wept with a loud voice when they saw the foundation of this house. But many shouted aloud with joy. No person could distinguish the sound of joyful acclaim from the sound of people weeping, for the people shouted with great joyful acclaim, and the sound was heard from afar. Chapter 4. Now the enemies of Judah and Benjamin heard that the returned exiles were building a temple for Yahweh, the God of Israel. And they approached Zerubbabel and the heads of the families, and they said to them, "Let us build with you. Like you, we seek your God, and have been sacrificing to him from the days of Esarhaddon, the king of Assyria, who brought us up here." But Zerubbabel, Jeshua, and the rest of the heads of the families of Israel said to them, "It is not for you, but for us to build a house for our God. We ourselves alone will build it for Yahweh, the God of Israel, just as Cyrus, the king of Persia, has commanded us." Then the people of the land discouraged the people of Judah, and made them afraid to build, and bribed officials against them to frustrate their plan, for all the days of Cyrus, king of Persia, until the reign of Darius, king of Persia. In the reign of Ahasuerus, at the beginning of his reign, they wrote an accusation against the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem. And in the days of Artaxerxes, Bishlam, Mithredath, Tabeel, and the rest of their colleagues wrote to Artaxerxes, king of Persia. The letter was written in Aramaic and translated from Aramaic. Rehum, the royal officer, and Shimshai the scribe wrote a letter against Jerusalem to King Artaxerxes as follows. Then Rehum, the royal officer, Shimshai the scribe, and the rest of their associates, the judges, the envoys, the officials, the Persians, the Ereks, the Babylonians, the Susians, that is, the Elamites, and the rest of the nations whom the great and noble Asnapar deported and settled in the cities of Samaria and the rest of the province beyond the river. And now this is the copy of the letter which was sent to him. To King Artaxerxes, from your servants, the men of the province beyond the river. And now be it known to the king that the Jews who have come up from near you to us have gone to Jerusalem. They are building the rebellious and wicked city. They are finishing the wall and repairing the foundation. Now be it known to the king that if this city is built and the walls are finished, they will not pay tribute and toll. The royal revenue will be reduced. Now, since we eat the salt of the palace, and the dishonor of the king is not proper for us to see, we send and make this known to the king, so that it may be investigated in the book of records of your ancestors. You will find in the book of records and learn that this city is a rebellious city, hurtful to kings and provinces, and they have rebelled in its midst from ancient times. Because of that, this city was destroyed. We make known to the king that if this city is built and the walls are finished, you will have nothing in the province beyond the river. The king sent a reply. To Rehum, the royal officer, Shimshai the scribe, and the rest of their associates who live in Samaria and the rest of the province beyond the river, greetings. And now, the letter that you sent to us has been translated and read before me, and I issued a decree. And they searched and found this city from ancient days revolted against kings, and rebellion and sedition has been made in it. Mighty kings have ruled over Jerusalem, governing all the province beyond the river, to whom tribute, duty, and tax has been given. So, now, issue forth a decree that these men stop, and this city not be built, until a decree is issued from me. And be careful not to be negligent on this matter. Why should damage grow to hurt kings? Then, when a copy of the letter of King Artaxerxes was read before Rehum, Shimshai the scribe and their associates, they returned in a hurry to Jerusalem against the Jews, and they stopped them by force and power. Then the work of the house of God in Jerusalem was stopped, and was discontinued until the 2nd year of the reign of Darius, king of Persia. Now the prophets, Haggai and Zechariah, the son of Iddo, prophesied to the Jews who were in Judah and in Jerusalem, in the name of the God of Israel who was over them. Then Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, the son of Jozadak, set out and began to build the house of God that is in Jerusalem. And with them the prophets of God were helping them. At the same time, Tattenai, governor of the province beyond the river, and Shethar-bozenai, and their associates came to them and spoke to them thus. Who issued you all a decree to build this house and to finish this structure? Then we asked them this. What are the names of the men who are building this building? And the eye of their God was on the elders of the Jews, and they did not stop them until the report came to Darius, and then the answer was received. The copy of the letter that Tattenai, governor of the province beyond the river, and Shethar-bozenai and his associates, the envoys who were in the province beyond the river, sent to Darius the king. They sent to him the report, in which was written as follows. To Darius the king, all peace. May it be known to the king that we went to the province of Judah, the house of the great God. It is being built, with stone blocks and timber is being put in the walls. This work is being done with diligence and is making progress in their hands. Then we asked those elders and said to them, Who issued forth to you a decree to build this house and to finish this structure? We also asked them their names, to make them known to you, that we might write down the names of their leaders. And this is the answer they returned to us. We are the servants of the God of heaven and earth, and we are building the house that was built formerly many years ago, which a great king of Israel had built and finished. But because our ancestors angered the God of heaven, he gave them into the hand of the Chaldean king Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. He destroyed this house and carried away the people to Babylonia. But in the 1st year of King Cyrus of Babylon's reign, he issued forth a decree to build this house of God. Also, the gold and silver vessels of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar took away from the temple in Jerusalem and brought to the temple in Babylonia, King Cyrus removed them from the temple in Babylonia, and they were given to Sheshbazzar, whom he appointed governor. He said to them, Take these vessels, go put them in the temple in Jerusalem, and let the house of God be built on its site. Then this Sheshbazzar came and laid the foundation of the house of God in Jerusalem, and from that time until now it is being built, but not finished. And that's what they said to us. And now, if it seems good for the king, let it be investigated in the house of the treasury of the king in Babylonia, to see if a decree was issued forth from King Cyrus to build this house of God in Jerusalem. And let the king send to us his desire on this matter. Chapter 6. Then King Darius issued forth a decree, and they searched the house of the treasury of scrolls being stored in Babylonia. But it was in Ecbatana, in the province of Media, in the citadel, that a certain scroll had written on it a record In the first year of King Cyrus, he issued forth a decree concerning the house of God in Jerusalem. Let the house be built, the place where sacrifices are offered, and let its foundations be raised. Its height shall be 60 cubits, and its width 60 cubits, with 3 layers of great stones and a layer of timber. Let the new expenses be paid from the house of the king. Also let gold and silver vessels of the house of God, which Nebuchadnezzar took from the temple in Jerusalem and brought to Babylonia, let them be returned and brought to the temple in Jerusalem to its place. Put them in the house of God. Now then, Tattenai, governor of the province beyond the river, Shethar-bozenai and your associates, the envoys who were in the province beyond the river, keep far away from there. Leave this work of the house of God alone. Let the governor of the Jews and the elders of the Jews build this house of God on its site. And I issue forth a decree for what you should do for these elders of the Jews to build this house of God. The full expense will be paid to these men from the riches of the king, from the taxes of the province beyond the river, without delay. Whatever may be needed, young bulls, young rams, sheep for the burnt offerings to the God of heaven, wheat, salt, wine, and oil for the priests in Jerusalem, let it be given to them day by day with no negligence, that they may offer incense to the God of heaven and pray for the life of the king and his children. Furthermore, I issue forth a decree that if any person violates this decree, let a beam be pulled out of his house and let him be impaled on it, and let his house be made a pile of rubble on account of this. May the God who has set his name there overthrow any king or people who sets his hand to alter or destroy this house of God in Jerusalem. I, Darius, issue forth a decree. Let it be done with diligence. Then Tattenai, the governor of the province beyond the river, Shethar-bozenai, and their associates, consequently did with diligence what Darius the king ordered. So the elders of the Jews were building and prospering through the prophecy of Haggai the prophet and Zechariah son of Iddo. They finished building by the command of the God of Israel and by the decree of Cyrus, Darius, and King Artaxerxes of Persia. This house was completed on the 3rd day of the month of Adar, which was in the 6th year of the reign of King Darius. And the Israelites, the priests, the Levites, and the rest of the returned exiles celebrated the dedication of this house of God with joy. And they offered during the dedication of this house of God 100 young bulls, 200 young rams, 400 lambs, and 12 male goats as a sin offering for Israel, according to the number of the tribes of Israel. Then they set the priests in their divisions and the Levites in their sections for the work of God in Jerusalem, as it is written in the book of Moses. On the 14th day of the 1st month, the returned exiles observed the Passover feast, for the priests and Levites together had consecrated themselves. All of them were clean, and they slaughtered the Passover sacrifice for all of the returned exiles, for their brothers, the priests, and for themselves. The Israelites who returned from the exile, and all who separated themselves from the uncleanness of the nations of the earth to seek Yahweh, the God of Israel, ate. With joy they celebrated the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days, because Yahweh had made them joyful, and had turned the heart of the king of Assyria toward them, in order to help them with the work of their hands on the house of the God of Israel.